Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.
Over 2,000 troops continue to stand guard at the U.S. Capitol, but an uncovered memo reveals that the Guard chief advised against extending troop deployment just before the Pentagon approved the extension. NTD's Melina Wisecup brings us more from Capitol Hill.
These National Guard troops here in D.C. were supposed to be headed home today, but after the Pentagon extended their mission for over 2 more months, it's unclear when exactly they'll be headed home. And this extended mission is growing in controversy from both government officials here in D.C. as well as just everyday citizens.
I think it's warranted, but I do think that they'd be wise to just draw down the troops a little bit.
Part of my frustration with the National Guard being here at the Capitol is the fact that when our nation was in turmoil in Portland, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, we were hesitant to send the National Guard in to protect those shop owners and the people who live there. Why is our administration's life so much more important than the common person?
In a joint bipartisan statement, the House Armed Services Committee now calling to reduce security on the Hill. Representatives Adam Smith, a Democrat, and Mike Rogers, a Republican, wrote that some level of support from the Guard should stay in D.C., but that it should be re-evaluated to determine how much support is actually needed. They also point to the costs of the tightened security. And Democrat Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton introduced legislation to prohibit using federal funds to install permanent fencing around any part of the Capitol grounds. But some citizens tell us they prefer a permanent fix.
Probably will need some kind of security personnel there, not necessarily the National Guard in the future, though.
For now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the troops will remain as long as they are needed. But the Guard chief raised concerns about prolonging the deployment, saying they don't have enough volunteers. In a memo sent before the Pentagon approved the extension, the chief said governors are expressing an unwillingness to order troops to the Capitol, as states continue to grapple with issues at home, like the pandemic, weather catastrophes, and riots.
Now, the Guard's extended mission here will be re-evaluated at the end of May, so it's possible that their mission could be extended past that May 23rd deadline. Now, the question on the minds of many is how long this tight security around the Capitol will last. Reporting in D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
And Reuters reports that the Mexican president is worried Biden's asylum policies are encouraging organized crime and boosting human trafficking. A cartel expert says the same thing. In fact, he says the cartels are smuggling so many migrants, they need new methods of tracking them. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
But we never talk about the core problem, and that is the Mexican cartels.
Speaking with American thought leaders, Jason Jones, a former captain of the Texas Department of Public Safety, says it's time for Mexican cartels to be designated as a terrorist organization so that law enforcement can go after them directly.
The cartels have gone through such quantum leaps in how they control and become a parallel government in Mexico, and these stories are not getting out. So when you talk about, what level of control does the cartel have at our southern border? It is 100%. They control it all.
Jones says to the cartels, people are a commodity. He said they look at the migrants as if they're nothing. He said they regularly carry out sexual assault and mass killings on the migrants. And now, under the Biden administration's immigration policies, Jones says the cartels are smuggling people across the border in numbers that are now overwhelming the cartels themselves. So they are resorting to a new method to keep track of the migrants and their payments: wristbands.
Well, on that band, you've got a specific marking that identifies, like one of the first ones we saw was a turtle, for example. That identifies a specific smuggling group working with Cartel de Golfo, or what is also known as the Gulf Cartel. It had the word metal on it. Now, that word metal meant that the peso or the tax had been paid. And then the final thing, and the most concerning on, was the number. There was a numbering system on it.
He says that in addition to taking the migrants' identification info, contact, and destination, the cartels also call the migrants' family in their country of origin and get the family's address. Here's why.
We're going into a realm of debt bondage. The prices at the border, the cartels are really charging a lot more than we've seen historically. So I'll give you a great example. The Cartel del Noreste and the Gulf Cartel are charging for migrants who come from Honduras and Guatemala and Venezuela $3,000 to cross. Now, that's just at the river. Well, a lot of them can't pay that. That's a lot of money. So they'll pay $1,000 up front. Now they're indebted. Now they move into the United States, they cross, but they are indebted to a criminal organization in a foreign country while living in the United States.
Jones says the cartels are much bigger than just a U.S.-Mexico problem. One cartel is now in 48 countries. And Jones says it's not only South American migrants crossing the border into the U.S.
Throughout the campaign, the Biden administration said that if people are going to cross, they're going to be let in the country. And you have to understand that was like a beacon to folks all over the world.
He says they're now finding migrants coming from countries like Africa and China. And he says more are on the way, each one a potential client for the cartels. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The family of Capitol Hill protester Ashli Babbitt is seeking answers in the January 6th killing of their loved one. Still, details of the case remain vague. NTD's Steve Lance brings us more.
The family of the woman killed during the January 6th Capitol Hill protests has hired an attorney to investigate the shooting that killed the 36-year-old woman. Lawyer Terrell Roberts is representing the family of Ashli Babbitt, who was killed by an unidentified Capitol police officer. The family's attorney alleges that Babbitt was killed without notice to comply and insists had she been given that opportunity, she would have done so.
If she got through that window, he would have time to confront her, step out, confront her, give verbal commands, give her a warning if he's going to shoot.
He notes that Ashli's 14-year military background would have given her sufficient judgment to understand the weight of such a command.
From Ashli's vantage point, there's no way she could have heard such a warning. He is concealing himself or hiding in a room. He's wearing a mask.
So far, the officer who shot Babbitt has not been identified, and there has been no official summary of the incident provided by the Capitol Police. Attorney Roberts says that from his experience, this is very uncommon.
Normally, the police agency would issue a statement explaining the case, explaining what happened, and identifying the officer, might indicate what his status is, if he's on administrative leave or whatever. Nothing like that's been issued by the U.S. Capitol Police.
According to the Babbitt family lawyer, the United States Attorney is conducting a criminal investigation, and the D.C. Metro Police is conducting an internal affairs investigation. Steve Lance, NTD News.
Already know what you'll spend your stimulus check on? Well, if you owe someone money, beware. They might be able to take it directly from your account. There's a loophole in the new relief bill that wasn't in the last one. The previous two stimulus checks were protected from debt collectors, but this time it's different. Democrats pushed the relief bill through using the budget reconciliation process, so they couldn't include protection from creditors in it. So now, if debt collectors want to seize the money, banks and credit unions may have to comply. But the Senate Finance Committee chair wants to introduce a standalone bill to fix the problem. Minneapolis reached a giant settlement with the family of George Floyd. Lawyers, city leaders, and Floyd's family spoke about the deal. NTD's Christina Kim has the story.
The city of Minneapolis agreed to pay the family of George Floyd a whopping $27 million. An attorney for the Floyd family called this the largest pretrial civil rights settlement ever.
It says to America that we can do more than just point fingers, accuse one another, and engage in more division. We can actually come together and make things better.
$500,000 of the settlement will go to George Floyd Square in Minneapolis. Another lawyer challenged corporations to match that number to show that they, quote, really care, and asked the city to memorialize Floyd. Mayor Jacob Fry promised a more just approach to community and safety.
We need to be unrelenting. We need to be unapologetic in our pursuit of a more equitable local government.
Floyd's family members also spoke.
But this is a small, big step in the George Floyd legacy.
Meanwhile, the jury selection continues on its 7th day for former police officer Derek Chauvin. Chauvin was involved in the arrest of Floyd and is being charged with his murder. Reporters asked if news of this announcement could prevent the jurors from being impartial and asked why they didn't wait until the trial ended to make this announcement.
We're not going to delay justice because we're worried about the outcome of a criminal trial that we all pray, what outcome we want.
So far, 7 of the 14 jurors have been selected. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.